All right, let's get to number 3 here. And this young man did not make your top 6. He was number 2 on my list, and I absolutely love Aaron Anderson out of LSU. Now, the issues physically, he's only 5'8", 187 unofficially. But as I mentioned, he's my wide receiver too. And I'm going to oversell it here because it's summertime and I'm aiming for the moon. I got some Tyreek and Waddle vibes when I watched him play. Now, he's not Tyreek. He's not Jalen Waddle right now, but there are glimpses of it. Now, he struggled with focus drops. His teammate Nick Anderson is also, I'm extremely high on him as well. He transferred in, didn't play last season except for one game because of a thigh injury. But 2023, he set the Oklahoma freshman record for 10 receiving touchdowns. So he's going to be another addition for Mr. Nussmeier, quarterback. But in terms of Aaron Anderson, he offers kick return ability, plays primarily in the slot. No surprise there. Transfer from Alabama after the 2022 season. But we talked about Nussmeier already, and we talked about him a lot, Rand, but you always see number 1 pop up because he's making plays all over the field. I would like him to be a little bit more refined as a route runner. He did have some focus drops at times and some turnovers untimely, but I thought the electric stuff that he did was high-level electric, and at times he could be a game changer. And he can take a 5-yard hitch and turn it into a 50-yard touchdown. He can take slants. He can take quick game and make them into big gains. So I'm a big Aaron Anderson fan with the understanding that at 5'8", it's hard to be a first-round pick unless you are insanely special. Jalen Waddle was 5'10", maybe a little hair underneath that first-round pick. Obviously, Tyreek slipped to day 3 because of the off-field stuff. Where are you on Mr. Anderson?
I'm definitely a fan. And like you said, watching Nussmeier, whether it was last year or this year, watching the tape, he's the guy that kept flashing, right? And then having gone into LSU last year and seeing him in practice, watching him move, like the movement skills are real. He's an athletic guy. He's explosive. He's fast, and he catches your eye immediately when you see him move around on the field. And for me, I'm looking at my list. My top 5, I had 5A, 5B with Deion Burks and Eugene Wilson III, and then he was right there. And
Okay.
the only reason I have him right there below those guys, and both of those guys are coming off injuries, which could easily flip and put, Aaron at number 5. But the one thing about him, and you said it, his height, it's 5'8" is what we're listing him in, right? And so until I'd like to see a true measurable, a verified height on him, because if we're talking even 5'0", 8'0" or below, there are not very many elite high-level wide receivers in our league at that height. And then the one thing, again, the ability, you see it quick. They play him in the slot, and I think they play him in the slot because of the size and just because they have bigger targets, on the outside. But in that offense, you don't see him run a lot of option and choice routes. A lot of the routes that they use him on are vertical coverage stretching type routes with clears it underneath for the other guys. And so the one thing that stood out about me, which is why I think one of the reasons they go and get a Nick Anderson, a bigger target for Nussmeier. Nussmeier may be 6'1.5", and so that's a tough target for him down the field throwing to a 5'8" receiver. And so you see sometimes where he's got the DB stacked and has a step on him, but because the DB is 6 feet, Nussmeier can't really see it. And so his best ball may come, at this next level when he has the taller type, quarterbacks that can see over the defense and get him the ball. But you talk about explosiveness, and I can see where you say the Tyreek, and I kept seeing those Tyreek type movements, but Tyreek's explosiveness, his downfield speed is just rare. And to me, at 5'8" or below, you have to have a rare quality. And I just don't see that in Aaron Anderson, but I'd love to have him on my team at some point.
Now, I know you and producer Sharon are track snobs, and in high school, Aaron ran a 10.7700. Is that okay with you? Because that feels like moving to me.
It's fair for high school, and so we won't confuse him running a 10.7 of saying he's a track guy. But I do think he's going to run 4.3. I think he will run in the range. And while we're talking about him, I just want to give a shout out to his high school, Edna Carr High School, which is a powerhouse in that New Orleans area. One of my really good friends, Sally Clavel, who scouts for the Minnesota Vikings. She was a big-time hooper at Edna Carr and played college ball at Sam Houston State. So shout out to Edna Carr.
Sharon informs me that 10.77 is, in his words, slow. So Y'all keep doing what y'all doing, and I'll be singing Aaron Anderson's praises while y'all say he's slow. Let me ask you this seriously though. So, did you have Jalen Waddle as a first round pick? They're different players, but I'm just thinking size wise because Jalen's pretty small for a first round pick, top 15 talent. And I'm trying to equate because Tank Dell was smaller, went in the third round. Calvin Austin, the third, was even smaller. He went in the fourth round, I believe. They're good players. Different levels have struggled with injury as well, which is also a concern. So where were you on Waddle? Because I'm trying to wrap my brain around the idea of how high realistically can Aaron Anderson go?
Yeah, I had Jalen Waddle as a first round pick, and again,
Okay.
when we talked about it, and I think he is 5'10", and some change. But again, we talked about having that rare trait, that blue trait, and he had that with his speed, and it showed up every week, no matter if he was the one, two, three receiver on that team, or if it was punt return or kick return, you saw that trait that he had show up on a week to week basis, and you knew in that Alabama offense if he had a small crease and he caught the ball on the move, it was night night. It was game over. And so he had that, which I don't think Aaron Anderson necessarily has, but I think he's plenty fast. Like I said, he's going to run a 4.3. And just think about where we've evolved in terms of speed. Like Ryan, when we were coming up, if you ran 4.4, you were legit. And
Mm-hmm.
now 4.4 is considered, so it's like
Yeah.
everybody's 4.3. And I do think this guy's going to be one of the many guys that runs 4.3.
It's
It's
funny you
just
say that because,
honestly, it's a mom and dad issue. He's 5'8". It's not his fault.
yeah. Yeah. And it's funny you say the 4.4 thing because when Jordan Addison ran a 4.47 a few years ago, people were like, to your point. Like they were like, okay, I thought he was going to be a little faster. He plays faster than that. He was 5'11, I think, 175. So height wise, fine. Weight wise, maybe a little concern. He's a really good football player. In fact, he was lights out when JJ was hurt with that hamstring injury, I believe, a few years ago. So it's not the end of the conversation. It's sort of the start of the conversation when you talk about these physical tools, because to your point, there's only so much you can overcome based on what your parents gave you when you were born. Um, is he? Let me give you a fair number here. So 45. Would you think he has an opportunity to be drafted higher than 45, or is the situation where like Tank Dell, like Calvin Austin the third, like all these other guys, Darius Davis comes to mind as an undersized playmaker? Where I guess the question is, what would Aaron Anderson have to do to inch his way into that top 45 conversation?
I think to get into that top 45 conversations, he's going to have to go for 1,200 yards or more and become a downfield threat, right? And again, some of this isn't his fault. He plays primarily in the slot. I think in the Baylor game, you saw him play a little bit more outside. If you go back and you watch that game, but even him playing outside in the Baylor game, they were just getting him the ball quick and a lot of quick screens, with people moving in front of him. And when I say it's not his fault, I was not talking about necessarily the mom and dad from the height issue, but him playing in the slot in Brian Kelly's offense, he's just not asked to run those whip routes, the option routes, the choice routes where you can see him against a nickel win one-on-one laterally, separate laterally. Again, a lot of what you see him do is those coverage stretching where he's got the safety over the top, he's got the corner underneath, and then he's clearing it out for those bigger receivers underneath at LSU last year.
Yeah, so we talked about Jaden Higgins being a second round pick in part because of his size. His teammate, Jalen Noel, undersized, went third or fourth round, I believe. So he went a round or two afterwards. So we'll see what happens with Aaron Anderson, but they're going to be in a high-powered offense, and there will be very little in the way of excuses as to why no one on that offense doesn't put up some huge numbers, starting with Garrett Nussmeier.